Christianity Today published an article that got my attention recently, and I want to share that.
Before you say that, you just got my attention. What in the world do you have on? And I know that we have some podcast listeners. They're not necessarily YouTube, but you look different. You look weird. What is that?
Go Bolts.
Okay.
I'm going to the hockey game tonight. So, I figured I'd dress up for all of our YouTube listeners, YouTube viewers. And it's Lightning are playing tonight. I'm going with a buddy. And right after this recording is done, I'm getting in the vehicle and driving north to Tampa and going to watch the Bolts win. Okay. So it's a hockey sweater.
Okay. So for you who are listening only on a podcast app, do not worry about going to YouTube to look at this. You will gain nothing.
Well, if you're a Bolts fan, you'll appreciate it.
Sure. And that's all 6 people in our audience. Okay. You said something got your curiosity and I interrupted you because you look so weird.
Well, yeah, I want to give Christianity Today credit on some of the reporting that they've done, particularly on some data that came out of the 2020 religion census. Here's the bottom line. Every Protestant denomination has declined, while those congregations claiming to be non-denominational have gained millions. So, this is hard data. These are the facts. You can think whatever you want to think about it, whether it's good or bad, but it's reality. And so I want to discuss some thoughts about this as to what's going on here. Why are non-denominational churches growing so rapidly? So that's what we'll be discussing. But before we do that, I certainly want to thank our sponsor, Logos and Faith Life. Nothing beats digging into the Bible for yourself. Hey, there's life in the words of Scripture. Why wouldn't you dig in as much as you could? And Logos helps you do that. Logos 10 is the new version that's out. It's a new release. It is phenomenally fast. And so it takes you beyond Bible reading and into deep studying of Scripture. I say this as a faithful user myself, somebody who absolutely loves the tool. So you can learn more, see more at logos.com/church answers. They got all sorts of packages available. They start at very inexpensive prices. So whether you need help with, Bible word study, sermon prep, understanding a difficult passage, or if you're like me and it's just your default search engine, I use it for everything. I'm like, what is this? I just start there in their fact book, and it is an awesome starting point for Bible study. So visit logos.com/church answers, find the package that works for you. I have a feeling you're going to love every bit of Logos because I know I do. So Logos 10 is the new release. It's a good one to get. Logos.com/church answers.
Hey, as we get into this fascinating information, again, we have contact with so many churches. This is one of many where it would be a similar story. So from the church's perspective, they have a loosely affiliated denominational relationship. They say, that denomination is part of our network partners. From the denomination's point of view, that church is one of theirs. So they view themselves as denominational. They, being the denomination, they view the church as denominational. The church feels like they're more non-denominational. That's really happening out there, Sam.
Yeah, it is. It's a rather humorous tug of war where the church is like, yeah, we don't belong to you. And the denomination is like, yes, you do. But those are, frankly, more built into databases and less of something that people feel on the surface. I can think of a couple of churches in my area that are still technically Southern Baptist. But if you were to go there and ask them, they would say they're non-denominational. But the Southern Baptists are still glad to have them. So I would say that's the first thing to note. I'm sure most people realize that. If you don't, hey, this is a reality. There are a handful of non-denominational churches. That's what they would call themselves. They're not really non-denominational.
Okay.
And by the way, I know these are self-titles, self-claims, right? Because there are some churches that would say they're non-denominational, but they're very much connected to a network, and that network may have some very tight, policies around what these churches can and can't do. And even though they say they're a network, they're really more like a denomination. There's a lot of that going on as well. So I do realize the nuance of like what is non-denominational You could even make the argument that there is no such thing as a non-denominational church because everybody's tied to somebody in some way with some sort of something. Truly independent church is hard to find. But I think this is more.
They usually form networks with other similar churches, even if they are independent. I think of the Independent Baptist movement that was really strong in the 60s and 70s and early 80s. Every church was an Independent Baptist, but they had an affiliation of informal connection with one another.
Yeah, Southern Baptists the same way. I think of ARC, more of a recent example, all of the ARC churches would say they're non-denominational. They're the Association of Related Churches, which is about as denominational sounding as you can get.
Association of Related Churches.
Yeah, no. It's like, no, you guys are a denomination, even though you say you're non-denom. But I get these are self-labels, so that's where we're getting at. You could make the argument that these churches are a little more connected than what they may seem to be, but these are labels that they claim for themselves. And in reality, these are churches that tend not to be, controlled by a denomination, say like the Methodist Church, which is a more of a hierarchy built.
Yeah, well, the pastor reports to the bishop in the Methodist Church,
right,
not to the congregation. So there's a significant difference.
So anyway, these are self-labels. That's the point.
So the reality, though, is their denominations are declining. I mean, no matter how we look at it, denominations are declining. And we really began to observe that phenomenon with the mainline churches. So when I hear mainline, Sam, some people may not understand that terminology. It may sound like it is something that is really held high for the mainline. But what are we talking about when we say mainline churches?
Yeah, there's a group. Oh my goodness, you're going to quiz me on this, and I'm
not going to quiz you on the specific denominations. I mean, it includes United Methodist, Presbyterian Church USA, one of the Lutheran bodies. I cannot remember all of them that fit under the mainline label. So, no, I'm not going to quiz you because I don't know the answers.
Actually, the Seven Sisters of American Protestantism, according to Wikipedia: the American Baptist Churches, the Christian Church of the Disciples of Christ, the Episcopal Church, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, Presbyterian Church USA, United Church of Christ, United Methodist Church, and the African Methodist Episcopal Church. There you go. There are your Seven Sisters of American Protestantism, often called the mainline denominations. So, yeah, these are the denominations that have been around a while. And they've been in decline for quite some time. I mean, this phenomenon has been noted for 50, 60 years.
And many of the congregations and the denominational body as a whole, many of them have had a leftward turn, a trend for some time. So they're often marked by a more liberal or progressive theology. And while individual congregations in there may not be going the path of the denomination, that's the general trend of those denominations.
Yeah, but now it's everybody. We used to talk about the mainline decline, as well, this leftward move. And this is well documented. I realize our listeners probably have a broad theological spectrum, but even the liberal churches would have said, yes, we know we're in decline. And so we've seen this for a while. And it used to be that the more right-leaning churches or conservative churches would look at the mainline denominations and say, well, your declines are due to liberalism, and now everybody's in decline. We're all in the same boat.
Well, that was Dean Kelly's famous book on why conservative churches are growing. He came out of the leadership of a mainline denomination, or maybe I think the whole World Council of Churches, if I remember, maybe the National Council of Churches. And he wrote this book, and he said, look, it is factual. Back then, the more liberal churches are declining, the more conservative churches are growing. Now, every church is growing, declining, I should say. It's just a matter of degree now, one way or another. Or I should say denominations. Not every church is declining.
Yes. And the denominations are really getting to the point of having too many struggling churches, not having enough healthy churches. And so the healthy churches are too few to resource and help struggling churches. And this is where I feel for those who lead within denominations. There are good leaders in denominations. There's some really amazing people who know what they're doing, but they're handcuffed in many ways because they don't have the resources to help. All of their churches are struggling. So it's like we don't, it used to be the denomination would exist where, you had enough healthy churches to kind of balance out the unhealthy churches, and there could be, resources that are pooled for, for the to remedy these problems. But now, since every church, not every church, but a lot of churches seem to be struggling within denominations, there's just too few healthy churches to do much of anything. And if you're a denominational leader, you're kind of caught in this vicious cycle. I want to help churches, but I don't have enough good churches to pull from to help the ones that are struggling. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons why we see a lot of declines in denominations.
So historically, mainline churches had a specific type of growth, but I should say non-denominational churches did, and it was mainline churches that were fueling the growth. So mainline church members would leave the mainline church and they would go to a non-denominational church as one of their primary sources of growth. Now, Sam, what is a new source or a new greater source of growth for the non-denominational churches?
So this is what got my attention, and this is why we're doing this podcast, because when I read this data, I'm a data freak, right? I'm a church researcher. I'm somebody who pays very close attention to this stuff, so much so that I even programmed our Know Your Community reports. Like, I'm that much of a nerd in this area.
And a good job you did.
Well, it was fun. It was fun. It was a great Thanksgiving that year when I when I sat down and programmed the whole thing. This got my attention. So yes, historically, the mainline denominations fueled the growth of non-denominational churches. So people would leave the mainline denominations and go to a non-denom church. Today, the growth of, and this is millions of people, the growth of non-denominational churches are people coming from a Catholic background. And that was shocking to me. It blew my mind, but facts are facts. So you have people leaving the Catholic Church, and those that decide they want to stay in the church are going. This just blows my mind because, of all the things, you've got the Catholic Protestant divide, but people leaving the Catholic Church, they're going to go to a non-denom church. They don't want to get into another denomination. And that is how a lot of non-denom churches are growing right now.
So if someone is a so-called good Catholic, if they're attending Mass and they're very regular within their parish, they're going to be used to a pretty strict hierarchy. I mean, it does go all the way up to the Pope. So they're used to hierarchy. So now they're having a pendulum swing out of hierarchy to where a church has no structural ties, official ties outside of its own body. So it really does feel like some type of whiplash, Sam. Wow, you're over here now. You're right. It's an amazing shift that is taking place.
Well, let me just speak from ground level at my own church.
Okay.
We are growing slowly. I tell my staff all the time, I'd love for the pace to be twice as fast as what we're doing right now, but at least we're growing. And we do have a lot of people coming from Catholic churches. In fact, right now, that's of our guests, people of a Catholic background are probably number one. Now, we are Baptist. We don't advertise it as much. We consider ourselves first a neighborhood church. So I think that's what most people realize. So we're not quite non-denom, but we're Baptistic, but we don't, it's not the first thing, that we tell people about ourselves. So I don't know that we could count as a non-denom church, but I think we could count as a neighborhood church. Mm-hmm. So we do get a lot of Catholic guests, and, what people have told us is, hey, we really just want to know the Bible. Like, we're here because it's, we're seeking to know more about the Bible. And for whatever reason, I know there's Catholic churches that do teach the Bible. I want to be careful about that. But for whatever reason in our area, it seems to be that people just want to learn the Bible. Also, the other thing that we're seeing is, at least in our area, a lot of growth with people who are coming out of Catholicism from South America or Central America. And so the people are immigrating to the United States. The Catholic Church in their area, for whatever reason, was not what they wanted it to be. I'll just say that because I don't want to knock Catholics too much on this podcast, because you could talk about Baptists and there would be just as many problems that we could bring up. We're just trying to give you guys the facts. So I know that when they immigrate to the United States from Central America and South America specifically, Mexico as well, that they're wanting to leave the Catholic Church, and they're ready to just, they're moving into a new country. They believe in Jesus, they love Jesus, they're just ready for something new. And non-denoms are where they land because they don't want all of the attachments that they had, say, in their home country. So that's for our area. I can't say that would be the case for every area in the United States, but I bet that that it's really those two reasons that we're seeing growth in non-denom churches. It's I'm coming out of the Catholic Church. I want Bible study, but I don't want to be attached to all of the trappings and the institutionalism that comes with the denomination. Because you got a lot of people who are in the Catholic Church would view, and a lot of people outside the Catholic Church would just look at the Catholic Church as just another denomination. It's like, we've got Methodist, you've got Presbyterian, you've got Baptist, you've got Catholic, right? And I understand that the Catholic Church would not view itself that way.
There's this thing called the Protestant Reformation that kind of divided the two quite a bit.
Yeah, but most people today don't know about it.
I get that. Totally get that.
It's wild. I mean, it's like there's this huge divide that people. There's a reason the Catholic Church is the way that it is. There's a reason Protestant churches are the way that you are. But you don't know the difference between Catholic and Protestant, and I think that's why people are just saying, "I just want Jesus. I just want the Bible," and that's why they're landing at non-denom churches.
One thing we need to mention before we wrap up this podcast is conversion growth is missing in almost all groups of churches. All right, there are three types of growth. Biological, you have a high birth rate of the people within your church, okay? Then you have transfer, Christians moving from one church to another. That's what is missing, though, is people who are becoming followers of Christ and then attending your church, or attending your church and then becoming followers of Christ, whichever order that you want to put that in. Conversion growth is becoming more and more rare, especially in America. Now, we have good contact with our friends in East Africa, particularly Uganda, and they're seeing a whole different type of growth. They're seeing a lot of conversion growth, but particularly in the U.S., conversion growth is common across denominations, non-denominations. We're not reaching people with the gospel, plain and simple.
Yeah, most churches, the churches that grow rapidly, most of them, it's due to transfer growth. That's a long documented fact. I'm sure that there's listeners that could point out exceptions to say, hey, this church grew well through conversion growth.
And that's what it'd be an exception. It would be an exception.
Yeah, but it would be an exception. I mean, you look at most churches that have thousands and thousands of people, and most of them the vast majority of them are transfer growth. Think what you will about that. Some would say, well, there's no other church in town doing anything, and that's where they went. It's like, okay, that's fine, but the facts are the facts. Very few churches, whether it be non-denom, mainline Catholic, very few churches are growing because people are sharing their faith. People are coming to Christ and they're being assimilated into the body through discipleship. Like, you're just not seeing that like you should. And really, it's a wake up call for all of us, because this shifting, that has occurred historically, it was mainline to other churches, and mainline to non-denom, and now it's Catholic to not. I mean, listen, I understand there's reasons to leave a church, and there's good reasons to leave a church and go to another one. That's not the point of this podcast. But generally speaking, this mass shifting of people is not helpful to the kingdom. And the way out of it for you, if you're talking about your church and your leadership, the way out of it is for you to be sharing your faith, you to be leading evangelism, and for your church to kind of catch fire with an evangelistic heart. You can't really do a whole lot about other churches if you're not there. So it's all about us doing what we should be doing in our own churches.
We want to expand this conversation in the days and months ahead. This particular podcast is being released on January 17th, 2023. Stick around and follow Church Answers. Get on our mailing list. Go to churchanswers.com and you can see how you can get on the mailing list. But coming in May, start looking for the Hope Initiative. And it is our attempt at Church Answers, working with hundreds and hundreds of churches in beta test. It is our attempt to ask God to change this pattern and help our churches reach people with the gospel. So we'll put it in the show notes. That's hopeinitiative.com. All you'll see, if it's January right now, you'll see is coming soon, but you can go in and bookmark it and get ready for it, because we've been beta testing this for a year, And it's amazing how God is working through this prayer/evangelistic resource. We got more to come on that, Sam. I'm didn't plan to say
excited.
that. I am too. I just wanted to give a hint of something that was to come. Hey, before we go, always, Tyndale, thank you. As I'm recording this, our friend Ron Beers is laid up in bed because he had knee replacement surgery. So, Ron, by the time you hear this, you're fully healed. But I just want you to know I was thinking about you. I'll be texting you today at some point. I waited. Surgery was 4
Ron
days.
is. I know I'm interrupting the copy. Can we just say what an incredible leader that guy is? And he would hate that we even mentioned him by name on the podcast. He's like, it's not about me, it's about Tyndale. But just an incredible leader.
Well, one of the great resources at Tyndale is the Filament app. Now, what is the Filament app? It's an app that you obviously put on your phone, and then you point it at the page. Is it the page number? Is that right? Point it at the page number, Sam?
Yeah, there's a little kind of icon next to the page number, and the app reads it, and it pulls it right up. It is absolutely amazing. Recommend it to my people all the time.
And it just has multitudes of information, study guides. It has all kinds of background, commentary, whatever. It's just all the different things that you can imagine. Well, we've been talking about the Filament app. Now, Tyndale has a journaling Bible, book by book of the New Testament. So one for Matthew, Mark, etc. And it is connected to the Filament app. So now you have a journaling Bible with all the individual books of the Bible from the New Testament connected to the Filament app. Are you getting that? Are you getting this big study? You're able to make all these notes, but you have a commentary or you have all the tools that you need just by pointing at this little thing next to the page number. You got the journaling space on every other side. It has all of the resources of the Filament Bible. You can use this personal study, group study. It's the journaling Bible. It's the Filament app. So just look at this. Now here's some of the things Filament app includes. 25,000 study notes, 350 plus videos, 40 maps and infographics, 400 profiles and articles, over 1,500 devotionals, and all kind of worship music. So get the Filament Bible app along with these journals. They're really very nice journals, and it's called the Filament Bible Journals. So get that from Tyndale. It's a great study resource. It's something that I know you will be blessed. Thank you, Tyndale, as always. Thank you, Ron and John and all the people that, Andrea, all the people that we have contact with. I shouldn't have started naming names. Now I'm thinking of all the other people I have contact with there. Jan, just so many good people. Thank you for being a part of our ministry, and thank you for letting us be a part of your ministry. Once again, we always thank you on YouTube who are watching Rainer on Leadership. Thank you who are listening on your favorite app. If you're on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe to us. If you're on a podcasting app, give us a like and review. Keep us in front of the world. We got a lot of good stuff coming in 2023, and we'll look forward to serving you in that capacity. And we'll see you in the next episode.